Hello, my friends. Wow, that was fast. It started recording really fast today. This is Heather. This is another fabulous episode of the Back to Me podcast. And of course, you guys know by now that the celebrity chats are my favorite part because I get to talk to some really awesome people. And this week's super amazing celebrity, because as I said, I think everybody is a celebrity. This week is Jamie Madigan. And we are going to talk, well, all things wellness, but I think we might talk a lot financial wellness today, right, Jamie? Right.
Exactly.
And I guess I always want to know a little bit about how people got into what they do. How did you get into this whole financial wellness world, or whatever you want to share with that kind of idea?
Sure. It's actually an odd story, or something that I never really planned on. I've been in financial services my whole career, some aspect of it, so 23 years now. But I was actually recruited into financial planning.
Really?
I had never thought of it, never considered it. A recruiter contacted me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, would you have any interest? We think you've got a good skill set." And the more I interviewed and talked to them and talked to different people, the more I realized, yeah, this is what I'm really passionate about. I see a good opportunity here. I'm fortunate enough that my dad got me started early, but I know a lot of my friends, network colleagues didn't start early or don't really know what they should be doing or why. So I kind of fell into it and then
Wow.
eventually realized that this is what I love, this is what I'm passionate about, and this is where I can make a difference in people's lives.
And what, I guess I'm curious, like, what were you were on LinkedIn, what were you looking at becoming before they
Um,
recruited you?
I wasn't. So I just left IBM. So this would have been back in 2009. It was after 10, almost 10 years of being there. I left from there and was just taking some time because it was my
Cool.
first real break after 10 years. I started
Right.
working right after university, right out of university. And looking back now, I wish I had taken some time, traveled,
I
done all of
know.
that. So, yeah, I was looking at it as a major milestone, and either I could continue on the path that I was on, or now would be a good time to transition into something else where it's still not too late.
Right. It's so true. Like, it, I like, I had a vice president when I was in corporate, a VP, who said to me once, he got to where he got by just being open to someone would suggest something and he would say, that's interesting. And then he would just, if he did actually find it interesting, and he just would follow it. And he was pretty high up in the corporation when I met him. But it's so interesting that you kind of fell into it. And I liked your comment that, your dad got you going on financial understanding and financial planning, because I can remember when I was in I might have been was I in my late 20s, probably mid 20s, when the first time I ever met with a financial planner. And even though I was on the road to becoming a chartered accountant, I had never done any financial planning. And it's very different than just knowing how to be an accountant. It's more encompassing, there's more to it. You almost need that person outside of you to help you like navigate it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many different people and titles and roles. So financial planning means something different to everybody. And that makes it even more confusing for Canadians, is that they don't always necessarily know who they're talking to or what that person can advise them on. So that's one of the first questions I always ask is, what do you think I do as a certified financial planner? What does financial planning mean to you, and have you ever had experience working with one? If so, what did you like about it? What could have been improved? And then that helps me to better understand their point of view, where they're coming from. And then I explain what I do as a certified financial planner, what makes me different, all the areas that I can assist with, because people tend to think it's either investments or insurance.
Right.
Right?
That's where my mind always goes, right?
Yeah. Exactly. You go, oh, financial planner, you do investments. I'm like, well, that's part of what I do. Or, oh, you do insurance. I said, well, that's part of what I do. But I do both of those, plus mortgages, plus health benefits, plus group benefits. And the way I phrase it is, it's really anything and everything to do with money and or your finances. And it all kind of rolls up into retirement tax and estate planning.
Right. And I guess a lot of people don't think about retirement because it always seems so far away, unless their parents have said to them, you've got to make sure, you know, um, but it always seems so far away. Or like I think about my parents. So my mother worked for the post office and she was like, I'm going to have this post office pension, right?
Right.
Didn't think about anything else. Yeah, we'll be fine. So, you become an entrepreneur and you're like, oh my God, there are no pensions.
I've got to create my own pension. What?
Right.
Nobody told me this.
So when you're helping people, I guess you're figuring out what they know or what they don't know. And then I guess you have to figure out where they are
Exactly. So where
and
are you
where they want to
currently?
go.
Yeah. Where are you currently at? Where do you want to be? By when? Who's important to you? What's important to you? Why? So it's really like a first date and asking all kinds of questions to get to know one another. And it's got to go both ways, Heather, because not only do I have to determine am I the right fit for them, but they also need to determine vice versa. So can I help them, and am I somebody that they want to work with?
Yeah, true. I guess there's a trust factor involved because it's their, uh, who knows? It's like could be everything for their future or everything. I'm thinking mortgages could be, you could be like in your 20s and need this financial planning to help you even look forward on how to manage that as you move through life. Um, and I know you usually I'm thinking of that chart you put up. It has mortgages, it has insurance, it has so many things on it. And not everything, I guess, relates to everyone, but you're helping them navigate what they will need. And do you ever have to give people, like if they come to you and say, I want to retire at 40 as a millionaire, do you ever have to tell people, well, this is is it possible to retire at 40 as a millionaire? Maybe if you're in bitcoins or something, but
Well, yeah, and it all depends on where you're at. If you're 39 and you haven't started, I can almost guarantee it's not going to happen.
right.
But if you started when you're 20, 25, and you've been regularly saving, putting money away, and properly understood what a well diversified portfolio was and how much risk to take on and whatnot, it could be very possible.
And I guess you have to project out. Like I know what are those people called who do the actuaries? Like
Yes.
projecting out how long, at some point you have to, the money doesn't last forever, but you have to kind of be able to have a educated guess on how much money will you need. Do you start with at the top and work backwards, or do you start at where you are and work forwards, or do you go both?
So it's
Does
a,
that make sense?
I get where you're going. So I can answer it, but for the listeners tuning in, what I think you're asking, Heather, is trying to determine not only how much money do we need, but making sure that we don't outlive our money.
Right.
Right? Yeah. So that's a very important piece of what I do is when ideally would you like to retire? What is that going to look like? Where do you want to be? How much money do you think you'll need? And the younger or earlier I start that conversation, the more blank stares I get or deer in the headlights. Like,
Right.
what do you mean? I'm 20, I'm 25, I'm 30, 40. I don't know. And I always say, just start thinking about it, envision it, and at least it gives us a starting point to work towards. It's not like we're casting it in stone, we can never change, but without giving it some thought, we really have nothing to work towards. And yeah, $1 million may work, and that's one of the numbers that's often tossed around. Oh, you need $1 million to retire. But no, not necessarily. Depending on the lifestyle that you want to enjoy in retirement, $1 million may be more than enough. It may not even be close to enough. And the
And I
other
guess it
factor,
depends where you live too, right?
yeah, it depends on where you live, how much are you going to be spending, what's the cost of living where you choose to, are you going to be traveling a lot, what's that going to look like, are you going to be staying at the best and fanciest places, doing lots of cruises? All of that has to get factored in versus somebody who just living a simple life in the country. That's going to be much cheaper than living in the heart of downtown. That's going
Have
to
you
cost
have you
you
ever
a
had
lot
anyone
more.
who say they wanted to retire on cruise ships? I've heard of people who just go from cruise to cruise. Instead of getting a retirement home, they just live on a cruise ship.
I
And
haven't had that yet, but usually travel does play an important part of most retirement plans.
right. And I was just thinking, like, because when you're 20s and you don't have any idea, you also don't always have a lot of money, right?
No,
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do something.
no, exactly. And my advice to people is to always get started. Like the best point to have started would have been yesterday. The next best time to start is right now.
Right.
And again, where it's not like we're setting everything in stone and predicting our future and that's the way it has to be. No, it can change tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. But the important thing is to get started, put some plans in place so that we've got goals to work towards. And then as those goals change, well, come back, let me know. We tweak the plan and continue on the new road path. And yes, your goals should change. Every time something happens, good or bad, in your life, that should alter not only things like your retirement goals, but also your financial goals, which in turn should be altering your financial plan.
So when you're talking financial goals, are you talking, because I kind of combine retirement goals and financial goals together, but maybe that's because I'm closer to retirement than most than the other way. So when you're talking financial goals, are you talking like income levels or savings levels or
So financial goals is anything to do with your finances. So retirement's one financial goal. Saving for your down payment for a house is
right?
another. Buying a vehicle, buying an investment property, buying a cottage, saving up for that cruise ship, or saving up for multiple cruise vacations back to back. All of those, your kids' education,
Oh yeah,
um, grandkids' education, anything like that, anything that requires a chunk of money or that you have to save up for, all of those should be considered financial goals. And you should have a different plan or one big master plan for all of those goals. And anytime anything changes with any of those goals, you should be going back to your plan, tweaking it accordingly so that you stay on track and continue the momentum and moving forward to achieving those goals.
right. Yeah. So you always see the commercials like you suddenly have a baby that changes everything in your life, not just the amount of sleep that you get, right?
Exactly. Or even
And
a
I
pet.
saw even pets can be super expensive. Oh my gosh, my friend's dog needs its teeth fixed. It's not inexpensive to have a pet these days. And I saw you post recently on LinkedIn about insurance, things that I like. You've been posting things on LinkedIn about things that it never even occurred to me, like insurance on, was it your children or your grandchildren or both?
Both. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of times parents and grandparents think of, okay, I've got kids or grandkids, I've got to open a RESP, or registered education savings plan, to help save up for their education. Yes, I highly recommend everybody should definitely do that. And again, parents or grandparents can open that because you can get up to $7,200 of grant money for each child or grandchild from the government. And I don't know about you, but I love getting free money from the government because
No
it doesn't
kidding.
happen often.
Get
But
it while
then
you can.
exactly. They come and take it all the time, but don't really give too much. So we got to take it when we can. But yeah, on the flip side, what I was talking about, Heather, is insurance. So life insurance and child critical illness insurance, which parents and grandparents typically don't think of. And again, it's just because nobody's really talking about it. And having gone through my own diagnosis last year and getting diagnosed with cancer, I've seen firsthand the impact that a critical illness policy can have on you. I got a nice check in the mail when I was diagnosed with cancer, and I now don't have to worry about my financial obligations, how I continue to pay my bills. I can focus on treatment and recovery. And it's the same with a child. If your child were to get sick with a major illness, one of the parents is likely going to be taking time off of work, which could lead to lost income. And that's why I highly encourage a child critical illness policy. And then when they get into their 20s, that child policy can be converted to an adult policy. And then the other thing that I was talking about is life insurance. And it's a great way, again, to get children started, protect their insurability from a young age. You can get a policy as soon as 14 days old. And
Wow.
then again, transfer it over to your child or your grandchild when they become older, more responsible, and let them manage it. And if it's built up enough cash, they may even want to cash it in to use for something like a down payment, like
Like
down
a
payment
year
on
off
a
traveling.
yeah, education cost, whatever. But obviously, I'm going to try to keep that in force and explain the differences between the death benefit and the cash value to them because these policies aren't always properly advertised or
Right.
explained, and people don't always take them out for the right reason. Because a lot of times it's like, oh, do this, supplement the education. They can pay for the wedding, down payment on a house, la 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 la. But you really need to look at the projections. And now that we're in such a low interest rate environment, it does take much longer for the cash value in those policies to build up. So it's not always as great as what it sounds for the investment component, anyways. However, life insurance is always good to have, and that will always continue to grow. And it's a nice gift to be able to give your child. And when they're in their late 20s, early 30s, they'll probably appreciate it that much more. Maybe not so
Right.
much when they're a teenager and they find out that oh, great, wow, what's this going to do? But later on in life, as we get smarter, then we appreciate the value of it. And like, trust me, again, it goes back to getting started now. You can't thank somebody enough for getting insurance in place for you from a very young age.
And I think we don't, I mean, I never thought of it for children or grandchildren because they're little kids. You're like, come on, what happens to little kids? Nothing. They're so healthy and vibrant and resilient. But then get the ads for the Sick Kids Hospital Foundation. So I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, kids don't stay healthy. And it is true. You forget sometimes, like, maybe they don't need life insurance for the same reason adults do, or critical illness insurance for the same reason adults do. But you forget sometimes the ripple effect of an illness on a family. It is so true that if one of your children got sick, you can't, somebody has to change their day-to-day, whatever it is, like their job, to be able to care. And I mean, the care is not always even in your city, right? Um, I know. So I don't know if you know where it is. I'm from Brockville originally.
oh yeah,
Maybe you do. I think you do. I think we talked about that before. And if you're in Brockville and you're something wrong with you, you're going to Kingston or Ottawa because there's only so much Brockville General can do for you, right? And that means your parents have to go with you and they're not going to be working and they're going to be away.
yeah. No,
So true.
yeah, and that's just it, Heather. And think back, especially these last 5 years, when something happens to a family, whether it be a child or a parent, think of all the GoFundMe pages that have started up now.
Yeah.
And every time I see one of those, it's heartbreaking because in the background, I'm thinking, oh, there's another family where if I connected with them sooner and explained the value of insurance, the different types of insurance, and how cheap it can be if you start at a younger age when you're healthy, no pre-existing health conditions. Like, it breaks my heart. And then going into the oncology unit now, every time I have a checkup appointment, it's not a fun place to be. And if people have never been there, I hope you never have to go. But again, I'm looking around, I'm like, oh, how many families could I have impacted or changed? Who's here that doesn't know about critical illness, is depleting their savings, and I could have made a difference if I talked to them a few years back. So that's really become my goal and my mission, just given everything I'm going through, is to really educate Canadians on the importance and the value of insurance.
Is that how you came up with Legacy Insights?
This has been a work in progress, but it started from there. And from working with Canadians and educating them, I started doing webinars back in 2019
Oh,
because
okay. Like even pre-COVID.
Yeah, exactly. Back when we used to do stuff in person. But then shifted online. And yeah, so Legacy Insights is something that I help Canadians develop for themselves. And there's three components to it. And the first is just helping them to get their money working harder for them to achieve what I call monetary proficiency. The second is helping them to get crystal clear on what do they want their personal legacy direction to be. And then the third component of that is ensuring that they've got the right legacy support network in place to achieve what they want their personal legacy direction to be.
What's in a legacy support network?
That is ensuring that you've got all the right people to achieve all of your personal legacy direction goals.
Do you mean like lawyers and investment people? And
it's really anybody and everyone that you need to support your goals, dreams, wishes. So could be wills and estate planning lawyer, real estate lawyer, real estate agent, accountant, bookkeeper, um, business lawyer if there's a family business.
All right.
Yeah. So it's really just walking through their specific situation. How do they want to be remembered? Um, is there an important cause? Like in my case, cancer is now an important cause and something I'm going to give back to more.
Right.
So it's really walking through all of those things and just how do they want to be remembered? What do they want their legacy to be? What do they want people to be talking about and remembering them for?
And that doesn't have to wait until you're at the end of your legacy to sort that, or should never be left to the end.
Yeah. Again, that's another discussion that can start happening right now.
Right.
It's going to change over the course of life as you go through life, experience things. Certain causes or people or places may become more important to you, and you may want to leave some money to them. Whereas other things that were important to you at one time maybe don't become as important because you realize it's material and really isn't as important as you thought it may be.
Right. Yeah, the things that are important to you in your 20s, if you make it to your 50s, you're not going to have the same things that are important. And
Yeah.
I think about, so when my father-in-law passed away, it's funny, I don't think he had thought about what kind of impact he wanted to leave or what legacy he wanted to leave. But my husband and I made a decision that we wanted him to have a legacy, so we set up a scholarship at in his name, in my father-in-law's name, at the university where he went to school to help students in architecture, because we thought it was important. And but if you don't think, I mean, in your 20s, it's hard to think about legacy and things that are going to be important. But yeah, and I think sometimes maybe people don't realize that they can leave a legacy
Yeah,
other than just, the relatives and, dispersing your estate. Like you can, you don't have to have millions and millions of dollars to have your name on the side of a hospital or something. Like you can set up smaller legacies.
exactly. And it's not always something that families talk about either, Heather. So that's another discussion that I often help to facilitate and also often encourage, that the different generations talk to one another about what are your wishes. Um, do you want a funeral service, open casket? Do you want to be cremated? Like even those details, and if it's a burial, where? What about the headstone? So obviously, I realize it's not a fun discussion to have, and that's why I help to facilitate it. It's not something you want to be talking about at the next holiday family dinner,
Easter
but
dinner, we'll talk about
yeah,
funerals.
but the sooner you have it, the better. Again, like let's get started now. Let's have it while everyone's hopefully in good health and a good mind, because then you're not panicking at the last minute. God forbid something happen, and if something unexpected were to happen to somebody in the family, you don't want to be scrambling at the last minute wondering, oh God, what were Jamie's wishes? Did he want to be buried, cremated? Like, does he have a will? Where is it? Does he have
Yeah.
insurance, investments? Did he have beneficiaries? And I lost my dad in December last year, but he did a great job of not only sharing his wishes with all of us, he also prepaid for everything.
What?
So everything
Wow,
was,
he was super organized.
yeah, everything was planned, paid for, also shared with us, and we knew exactly where everything was. And fortunately and unfortunately, because he passed away over time, we had plenty of opportunities to say goodbye to him and also get really tight on every little detail of his wishes so that we could honor those when he did pass. So it's not a it's not, I'm trying to think of the word, like not a great place to be, but it was, I guess, a little easier to know that we were honoring him in the way he wanted to be honored, because we had listened to my own advice, had those discussions while he was in good mind and body. And then as we got closer and closer to that time, we knew what those wishes were, where everything was, and what phone calls we had to make when that time came.
And it also takes when something's happening to someone, whether it's fast or slow, um, the family doesn't want to expend their energy trying to figure that stuff out, right?
No,
It's like we all know that everybody at some point is going to pass. Like, no matter how old you are, I'm sorry, at some point you're going to come to an ending. And the more you deny it, the worse it'll be maybe for you, but definitely for the people who have to be there at the end. And I was talking to a woman who wrote a book. I hope I get the name of the book right. It's called A Good Exit, I think it's called. Helping families have those conversations. It's like you might not want to talk about it, but that's not going to stop it from happening. So have everything in place in advance as much as possible so that your family doesn't have to worry about that. They can just focus on you and or each other or whatever, that needs to be.
yeah.
Um, my
What,
one of my husband's uncles I think he was an engineer or something. So when he passed away, you just took the binder off the shelf, you opened the binder, you phoned the phone number in the front, and everything else was taken care of. He had it all like your dad sorted.
yeah. Well, and one of my business partners refers to it as the art of dying neatly.
So true.
Yeah, it's a great concept because, as you just illustrated, like we all know it's going to happen at some point. It's never easy, regardless of whether we know it's coming or not. But it's even worse when it's unexpected. Like I've
Yeah.
got I've had so many phone calls where it was unexpected, and the family's obviously grieving, mourning, not in a good place. And if you've never talked about wishes or anything and don't know, is there insurance, is there investments, where is everything, who do we call, who do we talk, like, it is now probably one of the worst points in your life that you're ever experiencing, and you're completely lost and don't know who's got what, what's your next phone call, what do you do. Whereas, again, just by taking the time, getting organized, having those discussions, like, I knew exactly what phone calls I had to make. And we obviously took time to mourn and grieve him, and then just made a list of the phone calls we had to do, who we had to contact, divide and conquer, who was going to run with what. And it made it slightly easier to manage and deal with. But again, we were able to honor his wishes.
Do you find that, like, you're good, obviously with clients, you're going to bring it up for them, right?
Right.
Do you find that there's people who won't have the conversations? Are there people who resist that?
Mm, definitely. Some people just do not want to talk about it at all. And I get it. It's not a fun discussion to have, but I always circle back to, okay, there's two guaranteed things in life: death and taxes.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you talking to your accountant, bookkeeper, making sure your taxes are in order? For the most part, people are. I'm like, well, then why aren't we dealing with the elephant in the room? We know it's going to happen, and I can either help to facilitate it, or and maybe if you never want to have that discussion with your family, at least talk to a wills and estate planning lawyer. Get your will in order. Get powers of attorney in order, and at least create that binder, that document, and name an executor to your estate. Let the executor know that you've named them to make sure that they're okay with that
Right.
responsibility, and then let them know where to find that. So
Yeah.
that,
Because as a minimum, I mean, you could have a will and pass away, and if nobody knows who your lawyer is or where you hid it, then uh, I don't even know what happens. What happens these days if you die without a will?
then it's left up to the courts to decide, and there is a whole process about um, the way, the order in which um, it goes in terms of who can apply to be your executor. But it's just a mess. Bottom line, it's messy. It's more heartache on the family, and it often it causes or can lead to families arguing.
Right. Which is, you don't want that happening in a family. I mean, there's enough emotional discord going on, like grieving and all of the things that happen when someone passes.
Yeah,
Um, and I feel like, I know we've been talking lots about wills and things, but that is a part of estate planning, right? You're building an estate, you're building your assets to last as long as you can, and then it's what's going to happen to it, right?
yeah, exactly. And ideally, we want to try to keep as much of that wealth in the family as possible, and that's the main reason why I encourage those discussions. Is, okay, you've done a great job building all this wealth, and especially if there's a family business in the picture. Okay, so now what are we going to do to keep all that wealth in the family and ensure that the government doesn't get any more than what they're entitled to? And by we do that by having a will, having beneficiaries named on your insurance policies, and having both. I always encourage both primary and contingent or secondary beneficiaries, again, to keep the money in the family out of the estate. Also naming
Right.
beneficiaries on the investments, and having a succession plan for the business.
Right. I wonder sometimes if people don't think about that about their business. Like people do, I'm guilty of this, oh, I'm going to be around forever, right? It's like You don't like to look down the road and say, what would happen if? And what, and I've maybe, when you're in your 20s and everybody's getting married, and then you're in your 30s and everybody's getting divorced or having babies. So now I'm at that age where I keep ending up with people passing away, or people that I know passing away. And you see such a variety of bequests. And sometimes I wonder if the people, it was good at that time, but they never went back and revisited it because it's caused problems, like just the way it was written or the way it was structured, or maybe the advice that they got didn't turn out the way they intended. So how often do you think people should go back and look at those things? Like, how often do you meet with people to help them continue that kind of growth and intention and moving towards goals or adjusting goals?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Heather. And typically, I let the clients dictate that how often they want to meet. We meet a lot, obviously, in the beginning to set things up because, again, it's going back to dating. We try to ask lots of questions of one another, uh, figure out, is this going to be a good fit for one another? Are they connecting with me? Am I connecting with them? Can I help them with what their goals and objectives are? Am I the best fit to help them achieve that? And then I always encourage them, every time there's a major milestone, good or bad, please be reaching out to me. Like, don't wait until our next scheduled appointment. If you get married, have a kid, get a promotion, get an inheritance, win the lottery, lose your job, somebody passes away in the family, like anything good or bad, let me know, and then we can take a look at the plan. Does that impact the plan, and do we need to make any adjustments? And same thing goes for all the other documents. So wills and power of attorney, those should also be looked at anytime something major happens in your life, because it may cause something to need some tweaking.
Like maybe you named an executor who pre-deceases you. That would not be so good.
No.
Right?
Yeah, we always want to be going back to our plans, reviewing them. Do they still make sense? Are they still up to date? Do we need to tweak them at all? Or are we still good to continue on the same path?
I kind of feel like, it's like I feel like it should be almost annually. Like when you do that, where you look back, New Year's Eve, you look back over the year, you see what was good, you see what was bad, you set your intentions for the upcoming year. And I mean, New Year's Eve is just one of those dates. I also do that same thing September. Like I do it a couple times a year. But it's, I feel like annually would almost give you a consistency. So it's not like, oh, shoot, I forgot I did get that promotion. Right. I didn't call Jamie. Darn it. Or,
Definitely.
oh my God, I broke up with that person. I don't like them anymore. I don't want them to be my power of attorney for health because I think they'll have me put under.
No, yeah, I would definitely say at least annual at a minimum, Heather.
Minimum. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I meet with all my clients at least once a year. And then again, I let my clients dictate whether or not they want to meet more often. Everybody gets my email address, my cell phone number, my calendar links. So my clients who really get it have all my calendar links saved and just book time when they need me. And I love that because I see pop up, oh, Heather booked a meeting. I'm like, yes, Heather gets it. She needs something and she noted it in the calendar invite. I know the prep work I need to do. Something's changed. Heather wants to connect. Good. Can't wait to hear what's going on with Heather's life.
And are you seeing people do you have clients kind of in the entire country, or are you mostly just in Ontario, or?
The bulk in Ontario. So I've got my investments license in Ontario, Alberta, and BC because I've had some clients move west
Right.
and wanted to continue to work with me. And um, also I know people in both of those provinces. So I reached out and got some additional investment clients. So it was worthwhile for me to add my licensing for those two provinces. For insurance, I'm only licensed in Ontario right now. And then mortgages, we go right across the country.
It's funny. I never realized that some of these licenses were provincial because I feel like it's all one country. It's why
Yeah.
wouldn't they all be? Or,
For the most part, all of the provinces and territories are fairly similar, with the exception of Quebec. Quebec does have different regulations. I will never be licensed in Quebec because I don't speak French. But I've got a great financial planner who I know in Montreal, and I refer all of my Quebec clients or anybody that I meet who lives in Quebec, I refer them to him.
right. Yeah. It's good to have a network of people to always send. I'll even do it if, as a coach, if I meet someone, I'm like, yes, you need coaching. I shouldn't be your coach. I think you should talk to this person. You're not going to connect with everyone. It's and this is just going back a little bit because this was a thought that came and left and has come back about insurance. I feel sometimes like getting insurance is like trying to get a cell phone pro plan. It's like I there's too many things. It's too confusing. I don't understand any of it. And when you go to the sell place, you don't, it's almost like buying a car. You don't always feel like you're getting the, you're never sure if you're getting the right deal, the right phone, the right plan. It's just too hard to understand. But I know that you would help people understand insurance.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
find it people are always confused about insurance?
Yeah, and that's a great analogy, Heather. And yeah, that's why I highly encourage when it comes to insurance that you're talking to a certified financial planner or a chartered life underwriter, which is an insurance designation, so that they can explain the different types of insurance to you. Because yeah, it's really confusing. And people don't understand that there's four main types: life, critical illness, disability, long-term care. And we all have home and auto insurance because if you own a car, you have to have insurance. If you own or rent, you've got to have um, home or condo or tenants insurance. Like, so those are no brainers, but a lot of Canadians don't insure their biggest asset, which is us and our ability to go to work and earn a paycheck. And it quite often goes back to it's just too confusing and people don't understand it. So they're like, I'm going to turn around
Right.
the door because I don't know which phone or plan I want. There's too many options.
I know it is super confusing. I think all I have right now is disability, and I don't think I've reviewed it in probably 5 years, and I couldn't tell you what it was. Jamie, you and I need to talk.
That's a good example of when you need to circle back, review, and book some time and ask questions.
Right? It's when you get into a conversation, you're like, oh, shoot. Yeah, I don't actually know what I have. I couldn't tell you. I can tell you how much it costs me every month, but that's all I know.
Right.
And it's like your cell phone bill. Every now and then I'll open my cell phone bill. I'm like, how many gigabytes do I have? When did I get that? Oh my gosh. It's so true. And I think people are afraid of it, really.
Yeah, well,
As
again, it's the unknown, and people don't like the unknown, and I don't blame them. But that's why I always encourage people to ask questions. Like, it's your money, it's your life. Ask questions. It's not taught anywhere. So nobody should feel bad about asking questions. It's finally starting to be taught in some high schools, I think. And I know Ontario keeps talking about adding financial literacy to the high school programs. And I hope they make it mandatory as soon as possible because this needs to be taught much more than some of the other courses that they teach. But in the meantime, like, I highly encourage everyone to be asking questions. And there really is no such thing as a stupid question because this isn't taught anywhere and there's so much confusing information out there. That's why you need to talk to a professional to figure out what's right for your specific situation.
Yeah, you can't ask your Uncle Bob because unless he's a certified financial
I
planner.
was going to say, unless he's got his designations.
Yeah, I mean, everybody will have advice on
Oh,
what
yeah.
to do, right? I remember my father-in-law with, or maybe it was my somebody in the grandfather type age group said you had to invest in real estate. But I'm like, well, what if I don't know that that's totally true anymore, or what if that doesn't fit with my plan, or what if it doesn't fit with my current financial status, So,
Yeah,
and
buy
the
this
things that
stock.
worked before,
Yeah, or buy this stock, or buy Bitcoin. Like, okay, that's great. It might be working for me, but what I'm doing may not work for you, especially if we don't have the same goals. And I don't know too many Canadians who are exactly alike with the same goals.
right, right, totally makes sense. And how long, or the how long do you find that it usually takes for people to get themselves sorted, to get their plans in place? I know it's like dating. Like, how many dates does it usually take?
The more open and honest they are, the sooner we can build those plans, get them in place.
You're like a therapist for their money.
Exactly. I'm a financial therapist or a financial coach.
I like that because, people have hangups about all of that stuff, money, death, taxes, all of that. It's like, you what happens in the financial planner's office stays in the financial planner's office, kind of thing, right? It's like, this is a person who's going to help you get yourself sorted and
Yeah.
feel confident and be able to do the things you want to do.
Yeah, no, and the first document that we sign is a privacy and confidentiality agreement. So I always go back to that when I can tell that people are kind of holding back and remind them. I said, remember that first document? I'm like your doctor, I'm like your lawyer. Everything we discuss is private and confidential. Nobody else is going to know about you, your goals, what we're trying to do. It stays here. And that usually helps them to relax and open up a bit more. Because if I'm only as good in terms of making a plan for you to help you achieve your goals and objectives as you are in terms of being open and honest and giving me the information.
Right.
I build your plan based on the information you give me. And if you're not giving me all the information I need, guess what? Your plan likely won't help you achieve your goals and objectives, or not as quickly or as soon as it could.
Right. Or as easily.
Exactly.
And I know you're out there trying to like educate the country,
Yes.
everybody, young to old, on how would you describe it?
Um, and that's why I'm here today, Heather, is again trying to connect with all of your listeners to provide some value with their life and help them protect what matters most to them, their family, business, health, and wealth.
Right. And I like the fact that you're using it. It's like, I'm not trying to get your business. I'm trying to educate you so you
Exactly.
can, I mean, I have met financial planners in the past who I've just felt like we're trying to make commission. So I'll be right up front. But we've known each other for a little while. I can tell you, I don't feel like that with you. I feel like you're just really, really want people to understand so that they make the right decisions for themselves.
Yeah, there's 38 million Canadians out there. I'm never going to be the financial planner for all of them. But
That'd
if
be a
I can
busy
connect
schedule.
with as many of them as possible and they learn something from listening to this podcast or the playback of it, then I've done my job.
And also,
And
it's going to cascade down through generations, right? So if the parents can get a financial um, understanding, insights, goals, demonstrate it, like you said, even with the insurance policies, cascade it down the grandkids, then those kids are going to be better prepared going
yeah,
forward, right?
exactly. Yeah, because again, the sooner we get those younger generations started, the better. And when people have done a great job building up their wealth and overall portfolio, which likely includes some real estate too, we want to ensure that we protect that all, try to keep it all in the family, and then pass it down to all the future generations so that they can enjoy it.
And make sure that they understand how to manage it, right? Give them the,
Exactly.
it's like they say, lottery winners are usually broke within 5 years because it's like, didn't have it, suddenly have a lot of it, don't know how to manage it, spend it all.
Burn right through
Sadly.
it, back to square one.
If you win the lottery, make sure you phone Jamie.
Call me now.
Right? So that you don't burn through it too quickly.
Yeah, we don't want you to be that stat where you're bankrupt in 3 to 5 years. Let's make sure it lasts for life, and then we pass it down to your future generations.
Right? So amazing. So good. And I do think it's super important. And it is, like I always talk about, the 6 aspects of wellness. And financial is one of the facets that we have to talk about, because when, like, people say, oh, I'd rather be broke, no, broke and happy than rich and unhappy. But I'd like to be rich and happy. So
Exactly.
there's
Let's
no,
start
there's
with
no,
both.
what is it? There's no, it's not honor. It's not the word I'm looking for. Sometimes we romanticize the just living as minimally as you can as like this more valid way of living. But I follow a guy who says you can do more good in the world if you're rich. So money's not evil.
Yeah,
So you just figure out how to have what you need, and then you will be in a better wellness place to help others, right? And
exactly.
I love that that's the way that you're approaching financial planning. I love that you're just trying to help people understand how to manage their financial wellness so that the rest of their life goes well, right? That's amazing. Do you have any final thought, like a final thought for everybody? It may even be a repeat. It's totally cool.
Yeah, final thought would be, if you haven't already started, get started now. And get
Right.
started by connecting with a financial professional, ideally a certified financial planner, and start asking questions and talk about your goals, your objectives, what matters to you, who matters to you, where do you want to be, by when. Get your plan in place. And then once you do, monitor that plan, tweak it, and keep going back to that financial professional.
And if you want to talk to Jamie, everything will be in the chat boxes, the show notes, all Jamie's contact information. And start even if you don't think you can afford to start, right? A lot of people think I don't make enough money to have a planner, but I think you're saying doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Everybody should have a planner.
yeah, exactly. And there's all different types of planners out there. So there's no cost to work with me. I'm 100% commission. I don't charge Canadians a fee to work with me because I don't believe Canadians should have to pay to try to get ahead. And again, this ties back into that it's not taught anywhere. So if people
Right.
do have questions and they want to reach out with me, one of the links we are sharing is my calendar. So book a time on my calendar when it's convenient for you, and we can talk about your specific questions or concerns and get you some answers.
Amazing. Wow, I didn't know that. Even better. So good. Thank you so much.
You're
This has
welcome.
been, I also like the celebrity chats because I learn stuff while I'm talking to these really cool people.
And I love
So,
that I finally got celebrity status. Thank you, Heather.
no problem at all. Thank you so much, Jamie, for taking time and sharing all of the things that you know. And I highly encourage anyone to reach out and ask lots of questions, because there's everybody's different and everybody's going to have different questions and circumstances. And the only way to get answers is to ask questions, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. Thank you so much. We'll connect again soon.
Thank you
Take
again for having me, Heather.